I think I'm a capitalist at heart. I want to be super clear about that. So I think to be able to work in industries that you make, considerable revenue and you grow big companies, but you also have the ability to do that in industries that are solving really big problems. That's what I encourage the next generation to think of. Like, you can do it both. You can be working on things that are really motivating and that really challenge you and develop your own strengths and bring those strengths to the table. And especially with the onset of all the new technical tools, we're moving faster and more nimbler than ever. And I think this is an incredible time of innovation.
Welcome to Plus Partners, where we really dive into the stories that drive successes. I'm Kevin Burke, and founder of Burke Plus. Burke Plus helps businesses pretty much leverage the latest AI tools to grow their business and increase their revenue. We do it from a perspective of leveraging design as kind of our driving force. So if you have any questions about that, drop me a note in the comments and we'll get going. We have a great guest today, Jennifer Nuckles. Thanks very much for coming on.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for having me
here. And we'll have a good opportunity to hear what she's been up to, how she got there, and what she thinks of, the real estate market and property technology as things are going forward. So welcome.
Thanks, Kevin.
I hopefully just kind of start with a quick question of like, what are you doing in the property tech space?
Yeah. Great. So I am the CEO of R0 Systems. R0 is a building intelligence platform that encompasses both hardware and software. And we solve the biggest challenges that owners and operators have in their building portfolios, which are namely putting the investments and the energy, and energy I use as a double entendre, both in terms of focus as well as the actual energy costs where the people are. So we have sensor intelligence that begins by understanding where people are located in the buildings, where they move, where they're accumulating. And then we have open APIs that we integrate with the building management systems to control the BMSs to make sure that the air conditioning and the heating and the lighting is where those people are. So really putting the energy where the people are. And the reason why this is so important, and Kevin and I were just talking about this, if you think about the changing real estate landscape, specifically over the past 5 years, we've seen incredible movement of people in and out of cities. And the PropTech world is really exciting place to be right now because real estate owners, operators, tenants are really deciding what they need out of their portfolios, as well as how to optimize that space. I think historically there's been an incredible trade-off between how a building operates and the comfort and experience of the tenants. And with, the increasing vacancy rates and with the choices that tenants are now have the opportunity to face, it's becoming even more important to have a highly efficient operating smart building, but also not sacrifice the tenant experience and comfort.
Yes, I'm hearing it across the board. So many folks are focused on, optimizing the life cycle of the buildings that they have.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And even in new buildings, I think it's not even a conversation anymore if you're not building smart technology into the building for management purposes and just to make the building more efficient in general. How, and I have to ask, like, how'd you end up with smart building tech? I mean, you started CMO, CEO,
Yeah.
and now you're kind of like following the data. This is a
Yeah.
tool that
That's a good way to say it. I think when I look at what's important to me, I've always been hyper focused on using technology to make things more effective. And I've had stints across a number of different industries. I was chief marketing officer of Zynga, which was a publicly traded company. We got to $1 billion in 4 years, gaming company. I was a named executive officer of SoFi, took that public about 4 years ago. SoFi is a fintech. So what I'm really good at is using technology to solve problems. What I'm passionate about is 3 areas, one of which is the environment. And when you think about the largest inhibitors to the environment, which I think all of us should care about because as parents, we want this world to exist for our future generations. The biggest cost in commercial real estate outside of human capital is energy. And Department of Energy estimates that in the United States on an annual basis, $190 billion are spent on energy consumption, and 30% of that is wasteful. And I'm sure all of us, Kevin lives in Boston, I live in San Francisco, I'm sure we all drive across our bridges or around the seaport, and we see at 10 o'clock at night buildings ablaze with lights. And this is becoming even more important when you think about, my passion, technology. All of the conversations around technology use over the past several months have really come to head with the exacerbation and acceleration of artificial intelligence and the onset of data centers being built in many of our backyards. And the planet will run out of energy. And so it's really important that there's a number of different solves to make sure that we aren't supply constrained. And this is an area where technology can actually benefit future technology. And so that's what I'm focused on in the PropTech sense.
I imagine not only supply constrained, but delivery constrained is a huge, issue right now as well, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, we might be able to generate more electricity, but we might not be able to get it to these
How do we get it?
new
Yeah.
communities that are there. So shutting them down when they're not being used is a great way to conserve that and sort of open up space for where we need the energy to go to.
Yeah, and you think about many of the commercial real estate buildings, the preponderance of buildings in the US are actually older buildings that need to be retrofitted. They're not new buildings. And when you think about the integration complexity of these buildings or data overload and usability or multiple vendors and multiple systems working at once, it almost becomes too unmanageable for the landlord or for the owner. And this only is exacerbated when you think not just the building level, but the entire portfolio level. And I think this is what's really exciting is that we can use LLM, large language models, we can use artificial intelligence to help all of our customers, which are large real estate customers, think about their entire portfolio based off of occupancy and the way that the building is operating and get the most out of that entire portfolio. And again, why this matters is because buildings historically have been thought of as cost centers, especially in this kind of dislocated market right now. Everyone is hyper-focused on hard ROI and pulling as many costs out of your operating budget as you can. But the exciting thing about using technology to make buildings operate more efficiently is the buildings actually become profit centers. And what's really important is you think about like the vacancy rate in buildings or the ability to charge tenants higher dollars per square foot. And to your point, Kevin, tenants are asking for and seeking out only the Class A buildings that have the highest investments, not only for comfort, but also for efficiency of the space.
Yeah, I mean, they've got leverage right now too, right? So
Yeah.
so much vacancy, especially in the commercial world, that you can kind of level up a little bit if you're
Yeah.
if you're smart about the way that you're investing in your space for your business. I, yeah, I think you talking about the existing portfolio and the older buildings and kind of the aging of the building sort of is one of the opportunities. And I think that to me speaks a lot about the hardware combined with software
Yeah.
solution that you guys kind of have. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a variety of hardware products, and on the sensor side, we are agnostic about sensors. So our sensors are beneficial to some of our competitors, namely in terms of ease of installation and movement, as well as the amount of data points that we have in legacy data points on our system. So our customers can access hundreds of billions of data points over the past 5 years that will show how buildings are performing. So we use our own sensors, but that being said, we also ingest sensors data from a variety of partners, and we are an open system. We're completely agnostic. We're really here to help building owners make their spaces more efficient. The other piece of hardware that we have is a line of smart filtration. And what these are high efficiency, low static pressure filters that reduce the strain on HVAC fans so that the energy use is lowered by about 12%. And also we minimize the need for excessive outside air being pulled in, because that really contributes to heating and cooling. If you think about Boston in the summer or in the winter, it takes a lot of energy to actually rise to 68 to 72 degrees within the winter or to cool that in the summer. And so what we use is our complete portfolio that we can have the hardware showing where the people are, where you actually need to be running your systems, integrate with your BMS for ease of control and tenant insights and predictability, while also making sure that there's less of a load required on the existing HVAC system, which would deprecate that even faster.
Yeah, that's a ton of granular building ops data that you're collecting. I mean, that's pretty awesome. And is it like the models that you're building kind of capturing, um, you know, I guess environmental data alongside of the building data as well?
Yeah, we do. So we monitor everything um, from a movement standpoint, from a temperature standpoint, humidity, CO2 levels, VOCs, so everything that would actually impact the energy consumption that's needed in a space. And this is even further more important for large building owners that are looking for LEED credits or certifications. Again, it kind of speaks to that high quality of the building. And I think what most of our customers do is, so we have a dashboard, real-time dashboard that they can see, you know, by the nanosecond what's happening in their space to understand count of people, but also understand like what happened with their HVAC system. So for example, if you're building out or retrofitting a new space, 30% of the existing space was used for collaboration spaces. We have this much traffic going through the elevator banks. We have, this much through entry exit. And so you really can model out the optimal configured space going forward. And this is helpful for both landlords, owners, operators to design their space, but also for tenants so that they can most efficiently design the space to have, this new hybrid workforce in most effectively. Oh, Kevin, I think you're muted.
That is a ton. That's a lot. Thank you. Uh, yeah. So sorry, I apologize. I'll maybe cut this out, but my loft that the studio is in a really old building on the waterfront in Marblehead.
Yeah.
Attached to the front of the building is a crane that lifts the boats in and out of the water.
Oh, amazing.
Pretty cool because you have boats flying by the window.
It just went off.
But it has an electric motor that the power transfer unit is like in the back of my office. So every time like they lift a boat, it goes. So I don't know if you can hear it, but
I can't hear it, but
all
I
right,
would love
good.
to see it.
Maybe it won't happen, but
Yeah.
it was just starting to do it. So I had to mute. Like, oh my God,
Got it.
we're gonna think there's terrible things happening here. All right, so we'll cut that out and get back to it. But okay, so I was thinking that is just a ton of information, a ton of data points, a ton of sort of data capture points. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing with implementing these technologies into whether it's air buildings or new construction?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge over recent years has been there's so much information available to tenants and operators that they don't know what to do with it, or it's just too much data overload. And so I think there's a number of really important things here. Like you have to actually understand the way that the systems integrate. You have to have open systems that don't require complete overhauls of existing building systems. You have to be able to provide automation in terms of the occupancy-based lighting and control, climate control I was mentioning. We have to be able to provide real-time building performance dashboards to drive the decision making, which would both be on like tenant intelligence as well as leasing insights. And so the biggest thing for me is that owners are concerned about high upfront costs or improving the ROI. And so I think the solution here is prioritizing high impact, very quick payback investments. Occupancy, demand, controlled ventilation can save on average 28% of your energy costs in a single year, pays back instantaneously. High efficiency filtration that I mentioned also delivers ROI in under 5 years. So these are really quick paybacks. I think integration complexity is a huge barrier. Many buildings rely on outdated sideload systems, weren't designed to communicate. So what we built was an open platform, API driven, that allows kind of incremental upgrades versus that complete system overhaul. And then I think, not surprisingly, and you know this based on the decades you spent in real estate, stakeholder alignment's really important. And so you need the buy-in from the finance team, the asset managers, the operations leaders who are living the day-to-day of the building. And it always happens that you provide the business case at the CFO level, and then he kind of pushes it down, and the person who's managing the day-to-day isn't responsible for that, right? And so you kind of just get stuck in no man's decision land. And I think this is really difficult and really important for buildings to overcome, especially when you think about some of the carrot and stick approach. So I'm sure you're aware of this. With the changing administration, local laws are becoming even more important. Local Law 97, for example, in New York, by 2030 requires net zero for Manhattan buildings, New York buildings. And there will be penalties as soon as 2031. And these can be disruptive to NOI of buildings. They can outpace lease increases, right? And so I think of this, you and I both lived this, I think of this akin to Y2K, when people really woke up, like call it 1997, and it was a huge problem. And so we're starting to see much more momentum as we're heading towards that, fewer than 5 years to when these penalties are enacted.
Yeah, the New York law is definitely a game changer. I've talked to a few folks that are, trying to come up with different solutions and
Yeah.
ways to approach kind of handling it. But it's also potentially the first of many, right? A lot of cities are probably heading in that direction. I know Boston's having a lot of conversations right now.
Yeah.
To build new construction in Boston right now without it being, I think it's like a LEED Platinum building. It's a minimum standard for a new building.
And I think that's really important, because it's not just, a nice to have, but this is something that is removing costs from all buildings and all operating budgets, in addition to being better for everyone. So if you kind of have that double win, it's great. And you think, there's very few new buildings really being built when you compare that to the retrofits, but across the board and internationally, some countries are more ahead of us than this, because it's either hotter or they have, less supply of energy. And this is only going to be exacerbated in the next 10 years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we all know that building cities is sort of a long-term effort.
Yeah.
But a lot of times developers take a very short-term approach to that, right? They're
Yeah.
trying to put something up that they can get money out of and then take a step away. But finally, I think a lot of the communities are holding their hands to the fire and saying, you're not building something here unless it's something that can be sustainable and can not be a detriment to our, whether it's our grid or environment or the people that are working there. We want it to have a long-term sort of durability. Um, yeah, this is all awesome stuff. I love this stuff. Do you, how do you see like I know the hand is getting forced somewhat, but how do you see these smart buildings and smart building tech kind of reshaping the broader real estate market in cities, but also just outside of cities too? I mean, it's a kind of a buzzword and it's a hot topic. Where do you think that this movement is going?
Yeah, I think we've seen consumer behaviors over the past 5 years that people have expectation for personalized, self-adjusting environments is standard. And this could be anything from the lighting and temperature preferences to AI-powered air quality adjustments. Tenants really starting to engage with the buildings as adaptive and user-centric experiences rather than static spaces. I think those static spaces that many of us experienced in the 90s or early 2000s have to evolve or they're not going to be competitive.
Yeah, the one solution for everybody is not really a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, are you from the modeling development perspective, are you customizing every solution per client and their portfolio, or are you finding a lot of sort of synergy that then you can kind of tweak the dials a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, of course, we always work with customers in their proof of concepts, and we get their floor plans, and we identify how tenants are using the buildings for the landlords. But I do think once you start seeing that pattern recognition, and again, we have so many data points that we see the pattern recognition regardless of industry, and it's so fascinating because we predominantly focus on commercial real estate. However, commercial real estate actually exists in every industry. Healthcare systems have large corporate offices, and we have a number of hospital systems that are our customers, and they actually started deploying our solutions in their critical care environments because they could start modeling how surgical teams were working or operating staff were working, and they get not only the business efficiencies in terms of like making surgeries quicker or, being able to reduce readmit rates, but they also get the performance of the building. And so thinking of the building holistically, which is what a CFO does, think about it in terms of supporting the total business line is really interesting. So we do have the white glove care. We use our clients for their own specs, but a lot of it is kind of mirrored across industries.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, definitely, regardless of industry, if you are owning your real estate.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so how's R0 finding the right clients to target for these amazing solutions that you guys are
Yeah.
building?
Yeah, so our target or, ideal customer profile has a BMS building management system. The building is over 15,000 square feet. They do receive greater savings if they are either in high utility rate cities and states. So that would be, for example, like a New York or a California or a Texas. However, conversely, they also receive more savings if they are in geographies that have colder winters and higher summers, so hotter summers. Um, and so, we really focus on those large portfolio level real estate investment trusts, large portfolio holders, real estate companies. CDPQ is one of our largest investors, Hines, which owns hundreds of millions of square feet of real estate. We're deployed in Qualcomm, which also similarly owns hundreds of millions of square feet of real estate. Alexandria in the data center and the life sciences. So we span the vertical that are focused on real estate. And I think what's really important is if you think about operating budgets are so crucial to, especially now in this market, to everyone to be able to save 1% of energy is very meaningful. And that's how we go to market. So I think what's really important just for this environment in general is that there's lots of solutions, and having a building owner be willing to test the solutions and use the proof points and readily engage is really important. Like, it's not going to be possible to just be status quo going forward.
How do you, how do you, so okay, you're communicating with top level, and yes, we love the idea of saving money across our portfolio. And you talked a
Yeah.
little bit about this before. How do you kind of get that to filter down through the organization and get that buy-in? Is that something that, you find yourselves having to take on, or is it something that you just hope the organization's going to
No, we do. And I think this goes back to stakeholder alignment. It's really important that you get the business case, which is typically bought in by the CFO, the finance team, the asset managers, but with the solutions engineering team, large team that works with the building engineers. And those are the people who are typically looking at the systems, have their KPIs against how their BMS as well as their HVAC are performing. We also work really closely with facilities managers who are responsible for how the buildings are being used. The biggest pain point of a facilities manager is tenant complaints. And so that goes back to where I was saying there doesn't need to be a trade-off between tenant experience and building efficiency. Historically, there has been. And now that you can use technology to ensure the building is operating within that right temperature zone, within the right CO2 levels, and you have real time alerts, then you don't need to be kind of overheating or overcooling a building. I mean, HVAC systems exist for comfort of people, not to rush air through a building.
Yeah. Uh, you keep mentioning the old days, and I laugh because we were there, but when the building manager turned the temperature up or down, you didn't really have a choice. That was it.
No, no,
Yeah,
it's like
it's just amazing.
one instrument, right? Yeah.
Yeah. How did
Yeah.
we do that?
Yeah, and
You had a coat and you had like,
right.
lighter
How many
shirts
times have
and you
I
had
worn a
hats.
jacket in a room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
funny.
it's everything. It's from like, how often do you try to book a conference room and you see that the conference room is booked and you can't find a place for your team, but the conference room is empty,
Yeah.
right? And so this goes back to using technology to not just look if the conference room was booked through Google Calendar, but actually if there was someone physically in it, right? And so we have one of our sensors monitors like physical presence, and it's inanimate objects essentially, because a lot of times people will just put down a backpack at a desk, especially if you have hotel desk configures, and it's like, well, that desk isn't actually being used, but then a team would tell their facilities team, oh, we need more space for engineering. It's like, well, not really, because there's just backpacks on all these desks. So
Yeah.
again, it's making the space smarter.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's it's a foreseeable, doable future, I think. Um, we've got to do better with what we have,
Yeah.
and not just what we're coming up with and building for, and the new stuff.
Yeah, and
Um,
we've gotten there in life, right? If you think back to, yeah, like the buildings that existed when we first started our careers, or if you think about the phones that didn't exist when we first started our careers, like, you expect technology to work like electricity. It just works, right? And
mhm.
I think the next 10 years will show us that new onset of technology, especially in, these large assets, which are it's kind of a resurgence of the cities right now, and thinking about how you want the planning to look for the next decade.
Yeah, I mean, with housing shortages all over the place and smaller communities reluctant to buy into new development just for, space allocation, resource sort of overuse, worried about their schools getting too many people, and then
Right.
not understanding that their taxes are, commercially that's going to go up and they can afford better schools. Like, they don't see the bigger picture. So their cities are definitely going to be, I think, where the bulk of the new development is going to happen. So we've got to do a
Yeah.
better job down there for sure. So amazing solutions, and I think the right approach based on where you guys are at right now. Where do you see yourselves going with our zero over the next 5 years? Like, how do you kind of continue to push this idea and these concepts forward into the
Yeah.
market?
Yeah. So We're about 4 years old. We've raised just under $200 million, which I'm pretty proud of in this market again. I think we cover 15 million square feet, which has grown pretty considerably in the past year. It might be 100. I'll have to get those numbers for you. We can strike that. So they might be 150 million actually.
That's a little different.
Yeah, I need to look at that. It might be 15 billion. I don't know, customer data points. I'm not sure. So anyways, Veronica to give you that. But I think that, for us this year, it's really our large partnerships with some of these large real estate holders. We are focused on expanding into new geographies. We just moved out of the US, so we're in Singapore, we're in Canada. Again, back to those regions where either the temperature widely differs in different times of the year, or where utility rates are really high, or where there's a shortage of energy. And so I will continue to expand throughout those this year. We've introduced a number of new product lines last year in terms of both data measurement. This year, we're launching our M&V solution, our software M&V solution, which actually allows our customers to see how much real-time energy they are saving. And then again, going to this hard ROI and zero cost upfront investment, we have a pricing model, which is in the form of a rev share. So this has been a hang up historically for building owners because they haven't actually been able to measure the energy savings. And now we have it done directly in their software.
Yeah, for sure. It changes the storyline when you can actually show them, show them the receipt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big difference. Awesome. Well, that's awesome for R0. Where's Jennifer headed in the next 5 years? At the tip of the iceberg for R0, and sticking with the passion.
So I've been in the seat for about 2.5 years. I was on the board prior. I am at this stage now where I think I've done my most important job, which was raising 3 smart, independent children. I have 2 that are, one starting college, the other one is in college. My last one will go off to school soon, which is kind of a gift in that you think about how you want to spend the next part of your life and really focusing on things that make a difference for the world that we all live in. But also, I think what I'm really motivated by is growing important solutions. And I've done that over the past 20 years through my professional career, and I will continue doing that.
Love it. All right. We've both got kids going out into this scary world. I have 2 that have just graduated and one that's a sophomore in college right now.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. We're getting there.
I feel like we're at the same age splits. Yeah.
Yeah, we're probably very close. You look much better than I do, though. I'm an old man. But what's the parting wisdom so that these kids can, look back on your video and say, wow, she's really smart. What does she got for us?
Yeah, I think especially as a woman, I have 3 daughters and they've only known me as a professional woman. I think I'm a capitalist at heart. I want to be super clear about that. So I think to be able to work in industries that you make, considerable revenue and you grow big companies, but you also have the ability to do that in industries that are solving really big problems. That's what I encourage the next generation to think of. Like, you can do it both. You can be working on things that are really motivating and that really challenge you and, develop your own strengths and bring those strengths to the table. And especially with the onset of all the new technical tools, we're moving faster and more nimbler than ever. And I think this is an incredible time of innovation.
I'm taking that advice. Don't give it to my kids, but I want some of that. That is awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This was great.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time. Jennifer Nuckles, another episode of Plus Partners, and we're out. Thanks.
Thank you.